The impudence, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of those Knuckleheads of Liberty podcasters, daring to voice opinions outside the mainstream of accepted thought. Listen if you dare. It's angry, it's funny, it's even sometimes sad, but it's always based on freedom and justice, as you will see. Here's our host, Jason McPhee.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We are coming at you on January 19th, 2022. And quite amazingly, we've survived for a year. And we're not talking about COVID. It's we've survived Biden's presidency, something far worse. Something far more troublesome for the world. But before we get into any of the issues of the day, let me introduce you to our panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. Upper right-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. And my name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. This particular show, even as crazy as everything's been with Biden, some of the news that's been coming out about COVID is kind of disturbing. So this kind of centered around some of the dark side of all of this, supposedly the science, of COVID. And so one of the first topics I thought was kind of interesting and was apparently the FDA had recently been ordered through I believe a Freedom of Information Act to release the documents that they had used to okay the Pfizer COVID vaccine to come out to the public. So, I mean, that's one of the things as a public agency. And for any of you who are out there and you really want to know what's happening in these public agencies, you can try and ask for public records request. And so that's essentially what has happened here. And so FDA tried to say, okay, we'll give you those records in about 75 years, which coincidentally is about the time that almost everybody who's taken this thing will be dead by because maybe they'll call them COVID-related deaths, but they'll be dead one way or another in 75 years, most people. And so anyways, a judge had apparently said, that's not going to fly. Got 8 months. And so I thought this was hysterical. The idea that here you have this public agency that somehow they apparently were able to review, information in record time to tell us it was safe. But then they say take us 75 years to tell us what they reviewed.
Yes.
You guys
imagine that.
You guys want to comment on this? Or?
Oh, I didn't realize. Yeah, really. Finished, Jason. Sorry about that. This really speaks to a larger problem that we have in our society today, where government officials think they can do as they please, and then they don't have to disclose it to the public, because yes, they say yes, we will disclose it, but look at what they're saying. We'll disclose it, but it will take us 75 years to get it all out, just to make sure that there is no disclosure, just to make sure that nobody will ever know what they were doing. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. This is a matter of life and death. They are telling us this vaccine is safe. They are telling us that we must take it. There are vaccine mandates all over the place. Well, thank God the Supreme Court did shoot down one last week with OSHA. But the point is, they are telling us this thing is safe, but yet they are telling us, well, trust us. Trust us. We have done our work. We have done all the due diligence. We have done that all for you. You do not have to worry here and out. But, well, okay, fine. If it's also great and wonderful, show us. Let us see it. But no.
Sorry, I was just going to say, speaking of showing us our invisible hand, can you show us the article real quick too? Well, okay, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Keep going, Leon. Keep illuminating the situation for us.
But what is happening here is that this lack of transparency and then lack of accountability is a real problem. And the government, the federal government in particular, is so large. They are monstrosity beyond a monstrosity. And it looks like their main purpose is to protect themselves from us. who are supposed to be their overlords, not the other way around.
Yeah, I think you got that backwards there, Leon. What the heck? Yeah. I mean, on the one hand, they complain that we come up with these crazy conspiracy theories, but then they lay the foundation for, people's imaginations to run wild when they don't confirm the whole thought process behind what they were doing in the first place. So they want to do it all in secret, but trust us, and Leon's, I think he stepped into the real actual truth is they don't care about us in the least. They just care about themselves. They just care about their massive bureaucracy, whatever alphabet soup name it is, FDA or the CIA or the IRS, whatever, you name it. They just care about keeping the gravy rolling in for them, and they don't want to explain themselves to anybody if they can help it. So kudos to the judge. We have to nip this. Well, it's way far gone, but we have to try to roll back this mistrust in government agencies. And it takes, I guess, a judicial branch to whatever branch the FDA is. It's just some bureaucracy out there on its own. So this has to be reversed, this mistrust in government, and they need to be transparent in order to bring trust back. If we ever had it in the beginning, but now we really need it because now we've got Facebook and social media, and we come up with these crazy, when left in the dark like we are, people come up with these wild, stupid ideas, and who can blame them?
Yeah. Well, sorry. Go ahead, Leon.
No, but the whole point is that our freedom and our liberties are being trampled upon by this monstrosity, and they're just marching through our society with almost unchecked. And this is a real problem. I mean, we are now we're supposed to be living in a constitutional republic where we're supposed to have a transparent government who's supposed to always be informing us of what they're doing and why they're doing it. But unless we have all these freedom of information requests, unless we do those things, there's no transparency and no accountability either.
Well, and it's all about transparency, like you're saying, and the best we can do is try and request these records of our public officials when we can, and that brings us to a related story, and maybe we could bring that one up too. So the Intercept had requested, I guess, they'd done a records request from the NIH on some of the early, I guess. Investigations that were going on the source of the COVID. And so most of you will remember that Rand Paul has been in the Senate, and he's really been bird dogging Fauci over the last 6-7 months on his handling of COVID, and also too on what the NIH's role has been since the beginning of this. And so one of the questions has come up is, well, gee, as comedian Jon Stewart noted, you had this the origin of this happened to be right next to a plant that's called the infectious diseases, or whatever they called it.
The Institute of
Virology. Yeah. It just happened to be right next to that, and it's like, could there be a coincidence? I wonder, and so this is one of the things that has been on a lot of people's mind. Did this, leak from a lab in China? And from the beginning, Fauci has been trying to say that there's really almost no evidence that shows this could have happened, and there's almost no serious scientific scientists who are saying that this is likely the case. And these emails that have been surfaced now are essentially showing that some of these leading researchers that were involved that they were actually in early communications with Fauci saying that, hey, this is a real possibility. This came from the lab. Some of them are saying, hey, it's like 50-50 maybe that this thing might have come from there. And, after a few emails with Fauci, suddenly they're putting out a paper that says, no, we don't think that this could have come from the lab. And of course, the crazy thing with Fauci is he controls, in his position, a lot of funds that go into research. So if you are a scientist who's going to be doing research in these areas, then you're beholden. So, this is one of these things I think we have to be really cautious about, when we say the science. We have to understand that scientists, that there are biases that can creep into science. And certainly who's paying you, whose wallet you're reaching into to do your research might have some effect on that. And, when Fauci is controlling the purse strings in some of these cases, that might have been an issue. Anyways, do you guys have any thoughts on this story as well?
Well, if I can jump in quick, it's another example of this same thing, this lack of transparency and this this environment where people will think up their own conspiracy theories, and when you got a guy like Fauci, that's obvious. It seems obvious, at least to me, that he's trying to cover stuff up, and so it's very similar to the whole FDA thing. So again, it's just the government's just trying to cover their CYA, and they go from there.
But the disturbing thing about this story, the really disturbing thing about this story, is the role that the media is playing in this thing. Because we have conflicting information out there. Okay, Fauci been trying to push this narrative, well, it might have had natural origins. And there's information, there's data to suggest that it did not. It suggests that it came from the lab. We know also there's also information that our NIH, Fauci himself, funded some of the work at the Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China, which is right next door to the open market, the wet market. But the media is silent about these things. The media, at least the mainstream media, I mean, Fox News, I've tried to cover it quite well as far as I can tell. But the mainstream media, the rest of the mainstream media, no. Whatever Fauci says is almost godlike. He said it, and that's the gospel. We should all follow it. This is the science. His name is Tony Science, I guess. We cannot question him. We should not question him. But the media is silent about these things. Yeah. They're seeing these contradictions, these obvious things, these obvious pieces of information, and yet they remain silent. And what is worse about this, when there's anyone, and we have had some noted scientists from I think from Stanford, Harvard, some of the other Oxford University, who have come out and said things that contradicts the narrative. And what do? They try to go out and shut them down. Fauci and company, and the media again is going along with this.
Well, and actually, Leon,
at many levels.
Yeah. Leon, you're going right into, you're segueing right into our next story. So let me jump in and lay that out for the audience as well. So yet another email request, I guess, that had been illuminated some of the dark handlings of this stuff behind the scenes by our trusted scientific government officials here. One of the things that we saw with certain, as Leon said, certain preeminent scientists had stood up at some point and said, hey, look, this may not be the best way to handle this, the whole lockdown approach that you guys are doing. And so essentially there was this thing called the Great Barrington Declaration that came out. And it was, I think it was around October of 2020, where you had several preeminent scientists, and I'll name them for you real quick here. Apparently there was Harvard's Martin Koldoff, Oxford's Sunetra Gupta, and Stanford's Jay Bhattacharya. And they were the main authors of this Great Barrington Declaration that they put out, where essentially what they were questioning was the method. It wasn't that they were saying, hey, is this COVID fake or anything else like that. What they were saying is, hey, look, there's a better way to deal with this than lockdowns. Lockdowns are causing a lot of harms in a lot of places. And, quite frankly, when this first started, we at this show, we're talking about, look, the best way is very similar to what they're talking about in the Great Barrington Declaration. Let's if we're going to put any funding into anything, let's do it into protecting the people who are at highest risk, and let everybody else go about their business. If there's very little risk to them about COVID, that will build up some immunity within the population, because, as people who don't have much risk to it get it, then they essentially build up some immunity, and it's not going to pass as easily through them, and it'll give some relief to the people who are at the most risk, at that older age spectrum of the population. And, so there were some scientists coming out saying this. And so what happened after this Great Barrington Declaration came out? So Francis Collins and Tony Fauci, Tony Science, as he likes to refer to himself, I guess, Collins sent an email to Fauci saying, this proposal from the 3 fringe epidemiologists. Okay, that's I just read you their credentials. I mean, these people are stellar in their field. Okay.
Yes.
He says this proposal from these 3 fringe epidemiologists seems to be getting a lot of attention, and even a co-signature from Nobel Prize winner Mike Leavitt at Stanford. There needs to be a quick and devastating published takedown of its premises. Is it underway? He asked of Fauci. So, I mean, these guys are acting like some kind of mob bosses or something.
Yes.
They're going to put a hit on these other scientists who are doing exactly what scientists are supposed to do, which is questioning dogma, which is questioning
the science. Yeah,
exactly.
And
that's
Tom Woods
is questioning. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, these guys weren't slackers on the fringe, and at least Jay Bhattacharya, which is how it's pronounced, was interviewed more than once, I think, with Tom Woods, and yeah, he's been following this since the beginning, and any of us can sign onto it, but the Great Barrington Declaration has been signed by numerous scientists all over the world that agree that you do need to have a focused response to this pandemic. Of course, now it's all changing, but back then, I mean, that's all they said. They weren't anti-vaccine; they're pro-vaccine. These guys these 3 scientists, they weren't saying that this thing doesn't exist, and none of that stuff. Just take ivermectin. They weren't saying that. They were just saying, let's focus on the people at risk, and don't shut down the economy, and cause the $80 billion loss to the GDP that was subsequently $880 billion were thrown at it by the government with brand new money again. So you had an $80 billion cut and about a 8.8 times response from the government with debt. Okay, that was a response. And so the Great Barrington Declaration was simply saying, let's focus on the people at risk. That's it. Nothing more. And so, but no, the government doesn't want to have any of that. Are you kidding? No, they have to have the heavy hand. Let's get everybody. We're going to get everybody here. We're going to just crush everybody's freedom, because that's what we do. We crush freedom around here. And, the crushing is going to continue until everybody's morale goes up. Okay. And I'm Tony Science Fauci, and that's the end of that. Right, Leon?
Yeah. Just before we came on the news, just before we came onto the show, the CDC had just put out that natural immunity is working better against the Delta variant than it was the vaccines. But what is happening here? Look how long they took to do this.
I wish it would work against my darn cough, because I still have it.
Yes. Look at what is happening here. Look how long the CDC have resisted recognizing that natural immunity has some part of limiting the spread and the effect and the impact of this virus. So within the government, the CDC, the FDA, and the administration, there's this narrative that everybody's trying to support. Everybody wants the vaccine and nothing more. So when these people in the Barrington Declaration say, okay, let's protect the high risk groups, but let everybody else go on with their lives. That is the conclusion I think we are now coming to. But the government had different things in mind. We're going to lock down the economy. Everybody going to lock down. Okay, we're going to close the schools. Look at what happened to our children as a result. They closed the schools. They're still trying to close the schools. Look at what's going on in Chicago. They have their narratives in place, and they don't care what we think about it. And we are the taxpayers. We are the people who are funding these people. And there is no accountability to the disasters that these people have caused in their lives and the misery they have brought to American citizens. And we got to do something about this. Otherwise, we'll have no rights and liberties left.
Yeah, not to mention the latest mask mandate or the mask mandates that's been going on. Plus now, we get more free stuff. Now we're getting N95 masks from Biden himself. I mean, like he just conjures them up out of thin air.
Which he does. Four variants too late.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. When Omicron will blow those stupid masks out of the water. Number one. Number two, it won't matter because it's now been now they're finally recognizing all over the obvious elephant in the room, and that is that Omicron is not a big, huge deal anymore. It's very much like cold symptoms and flu symptoms. That's it. Okay, even in us old people. So it's ridiculous. And what can I say? Go ahead, Jason.
But you don't have to be a rocket scientist or an epidemiologist to figure this thing out. If you go back and look at our shows from April or March of 2020, we were saying the same thing. Protect the high risk groups, which are people over 65. At the time, I think we thought it was over 60 or 65, I think. But protect those groups. People with underlying diseases, protect them. But let everybody else go on with their life. Maybe we go wear a mask, and maybe we'll do the social distancing. But let people go on with their lives.
Yeah,
we were saying that on this show.
Yeah, and pretty much the prescription was out there from guys like Elon Musk. Look, if you want to have stuff, you got to make stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's literally what he was saying, when they were not letting his plant reopen in California. But, and you can question, okay, well, how much do we need Teslas, during this whole thing? Okay, but clearly we need some stuff, which means some people have to work. I mean, you can't just shut down the whole economy and say, you are essential, you're not essential, which is exactly what a central planning stooge likes to think. By the way, you mentioned Jay Bhattacharya, and I think since we kind of run over our time for other topics, let me just say something about him. I really think that guy is sharp and worth listening to if you haven't heard his stuff. He is both a professor of economics and a professor of this, investigating this viral epidemiology or what. I can't remember virology.
That's close enough.
Close enough. Yeah, my tongue is a little bit tied today, but and there's so few scientists out there who have that economics background. So if ever we needed a guy at the beginning of this who had that relevant background in both economics and the science of what we're going through. That's it. This really shows that there are economic consequences to these other decisions we make, and you've got to consider these things hand in hand.
Indeed.
Well, let's jump onto the Knucklehead Noise Patrol real quick here. And so with that, our Knucklehead comes straight out of the Biden administration, and if you listen to Biden, it's our president, Kamala Harris. But apparently, Kamala Harris was being interviewed recently on the NBC's one of NBC's shows, I guess, by interviewer Craig Melvin, and he asked Kamala if maybe it's time to change the nation's COVID policy. And so, just so you know what we're in for, if Biden steps down and Kamala is our new leader, this was Kamala's response to how we're going to change this this COVID policy that they have here. So Kamala babbled to him. It is time for us to do what we have been doing. And that time is every day. Every day is time for us to agree that there are things and tools that are available to us to slow this thing down. So that wise words from Kamala Harris. I have no idea what the hell she's talking about. But that's the wise lady that Biden has selected as his I guess is his leader. I don't know.
I'm telling you, because he calls her President. He calls her President Harris all the time. So he maybe he knows something that we don't. You know, if you go back and look at Kamala's history, okay, when she was district attorney of San Francisco, when she was then she became Attorney General of California. Then she became a senator. You go back and look at this woman's history. This woman is nothing but an empty suit. She really is. An empty suit. She have nothing other than maybe her looks. Okay? I think I'll give her that. But that woman has an empty head. Okay? She and AOC came out of the same school, apparently. They are both idiots who can't even figure out the most simplest of things in terms of governance. And this woman is the heir apparent to our great republic.
The airhead apparent? Is that what you said?
Well, I got to give credit to Kamala where credit is due. She knows how to lock people up for smoking marijuana. Real good.
She did a lot of that. But there's one famous case involving her, where she actually locked up some innocent guy and she tried to hide the information. There was
later on.
Tulsi brought it up in one of the debates.
Yeah, later on, they came out with evidence that would have exonerated him, and she refused.
Yes.
In spite of being counseled by numerous other attorneys and judges to release the information, refused to do it.
Well,
for a long time.
It was your girl Tulsi who exposed at the debates, really and truly. A real good takedown. So I have to give you that, Tim.
Thank you.
They exposed that she's been doing what she's been doing, and she's been doing that every day.
Every day, and this is the time to do what we've been doing, according to Kamala.
Exactly. Well, it's our time to wrap up the show, but thanks so much for joining us, and we hope to see you at the next one. Until then, stay free.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.